The Ukrainian armed forces have struck an area where the Russian army's manpower and armored combat vehicles are concentrated in the Kursk region of Russia. At night, a powerful explosion occurred as a result of strikes launched by the M142 HIMARS multiple launch rocket system with GMLRS and M30 DPCIM cluster munitions. Although the exact number of casualties is not known, the force of the strike suggests that the number of dead and wounded, as well as the number of destroyed equipment, is high. It should be noted that in recent days, the Russian army has been able to push the Ukrainian army out of the area by launching an offensive in the Kursk region. However, the Ukrainian army's strikes in this direction continue. Recall, Russian forces have dramatically escalated their campaign to eliminate the remaining Ukrainian salient in Kursk Oblast, with the Institute for the Study of War reporting a coordinated effort to destroy bridges along the international border, potentially to prevent Ukrainian forces from withdrawing. In recent days, Russian units have pushed deeper into Ukrainian positions. This push comes amid reports that Ukrainian forces may be considering a tactical withdrawal to avoid heavy losses. According to the ISW, Russian military bloggers claim that Russian forces destroyed a bridge north of Sudza along the H-07 Sumy City-Sudza highway and that Russian forces are attempting to prevent Ukrainian forces from withdrawing to Sudza.
North Korean soldiers who are currently, together with the Russians, putting pressure on the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region, particularly on the right flank, may enter the Sumy region. This opinion was expressed by military expert and reserve colonel of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Serhiy Hrabsky, during a broadcast on the Kiev 24 TV channel. The expert warned that it was very difficult to predict the actions of the Russians. For example, back in September, General Budanov had said that given the level of losses, the Russians should have halted their advance in Donbass, but they don't take that into account. Hrabsky noted, the analyst does not rule out that North Korean troops fighting as part of the Russian army in Kursk may enter the territory of the Sumy region. Undoubtedly they can. There's no clear marker on the border indicating where Russia ends and Ukraine begins. They are carrying out combat tasks, and by the way, the advance near Novenke of Sumy region looks like the execution of a combat task aimed at moving toward the main logistical highway to cut it off. So, we'll see how the situation develops, Hrabsky said. At the same time, he hopes that significant losses might force the Russians to avoid risking the liberation of the Kursk region and refrain from attacking Ukrainian units on other fronts. Spokesman of the State Border Service, Andriy Demchenko, said that the aggressor army of Russia has intensified its activities along the border with Sumy region. The occupiers are trying to break through Ukraine's defense and cut off supply routes to the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region of Russia. The highest activity of the occupying forces is observed in the area where the Ukrainian armed forces are conducting operations within the Kursk region, as well as near the settlement of Novenke in Sumy region. For a certain period, we have been recording that the enemy is trying to break through our border on the left flank of this area, approach it, and gain a foothold. This is being done with the goal of either surrounding our forces in Kursk region or complicating logistics, particularly by cutting off supply routes, Demchenko said. The invaders cannot use heavy equipment for an assault, so they are using small groups of soldiers while not confirming the complete consolidation of Russian forces in Novenke. What about Novenke? It is difficult to call it a settlement. It is a small village that has already suffered significant damage due to enemy shelling. The enemy continues to shell Sumy region. Therefore, the claim of complete consolidation of the enemy in Novenke is untrue. Ukrainian forces continue to destroy enemy groups attempting to break through the border, Demchenko said. Meanwhile, the State Border Guard Service has its own areas of responsibility and defense sectors, and military command and leadership across the defense line will take necessary actions to prevent the fighting from spreading into Sumy region.
The media reported that the aggressor country Russia does not want to join the US initiative to establish a 30-day ceasefire. Most likely, the Kremlin will try to manipulate the US. Director of the information and consulting company Defense Express Sergei Zgurets spoke about this on air at Espresso. According to him, it is in the Kremlin's interests to drag out the process by putting forward various arguments so that the discussion around the ceasefire continues. At the same time, Russia will act in accordance with the words of Putin, who said that everything is decided on the ground, there is good dynamics there, and they do not intend to agree to a truce. If there is a truce, then Ukraine must stop mobilization, stop training the military during this period and not receive foreign aid. These demands, of course, are not real prerequisites for the Ukrainian side to agree to them, Zgurets explained. In this way, Russia wants to change the format of the discussion in order to avoid European influence and remove Ukraine from initiatives. This is not the first time that Russia has used such tactics. Zgurets noted that US President Donald Trump may be irritated by such behavior of the Kremlin and personally Russian dictator Vladimir Putin when he realizes that his conditional partner promises one thing and acts completely differently. Then the US can apply important levers of influence. In particular, publicly announced sanctions are one factor, and the second is military. That is, the acceleration of deliveries of packages under the programs adopted during Biden's time. There are no new packages from Trump yet, but they may be. It is also possible to accelerate the production of weapon samples, which is currently taking place at American enterprises. These two factors can be implemented and in a certain way affect the situation on the front line, he concluded. Recall US President Donald Trump's National Security Advisor Mike Volz held talks with a representative of the Russian Federation, after which Trump's Special Representative Steve Witkoff arrived in Moscow to discuss a possible truce. However, the Russian Federation has not yet given a clear answer. Earlier it was also reported that Ukraine had begun forming a national team to monitor the 30-day ceasefire. The team will be developing an algorithm of actions to monitor the ceasefire. Ukrainian military personnel stated that they do not believe that the 30-day ceasefire on the contact line will be effective. They recalled that during the ATO/JFO, the Russians repeatedly violated the temporary ceasefire.